The twin suns of Haven 1-2 were slowly setting when Evan Carter locked the door of his repair outpost. The day had been long and quiet. Just like most days on this small frontier planet, he worked alone, fixing old mining machines, damaged drones, and sometimes broken farming tools. The outpost stood far from the main town. Surrounded by empty plains and silent hills, Evan liked the peace, the calm, and the simple life. But that evening, something unusual happened. As Evan walked toward the storage shed, he heard soft footsteps behind the outpost. They were light, careful, almost fearful. At first, he thought it might be a wild animal. But animals on Haven 1-2 usually ran away when they heard humans. These steps were different. Evan turned slowly. "Hello?" he called in a gentle voice. No answer came. He took a few quiet steps toward the sound, his boots sinking slightly into the dusty ground. Then he saw something move between two metal crates. A small shape. A very small one. Evan stopped. "It's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you. I won't hurt you." A tiny head appeared from behind the crates. Evan's eyes widened. It was a child, an alien child. She looked no older than 6 or 7 in human age. Her skin was pale silver, with faint glowing lines running across her arms. Her eyes were large, round, and bright blue, full of fear and hunger. She wore a torn cloak made from some soft fabric, and she held it tightly around herself as if it was her only shield. Evan's heart softened. She looked lost, scared, alone. The little alien took one step forward, then stopped. Her legs trembled. She lifted her hands slightly, as if asking for help but unsure if she should trust him. "You're hungry, aren't you?" Evan asked quietly. She nodded slowly, carefully. Evan raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "Come with me. I have food. You can eat. You'll be safe here." The child watched him for a moment. Then, with a tiny shake in her steps, she followed him inside the outpost. Evan guided her to the small kitchen area. He opened a pantry box and placed a few soft food packs on the table. Simple bread cubes, fruit gel bars, and warm soup packets. The child stared at the food like it was treasure. "You can eat," Evan said gently. She hesitated for a second, then rushed to the table and started eating. Not in a wild or rude way, just fast, like she had been hungry for a long time. Evan watched her closely, making sure she didn't choke or feel afraid. "You poor thing," he whispered. "Where did you come from?" She could not speak his language, but she tried to communicate. With small, slow movements, she pointed to the sky. Then she drew a circle in the air with her finger, like a shape of a ship. Then she placed a hand on her stomach, showing hunger. Evan understood. She must have come from a spacecraft, and she had been starving. "Did your ship crash?" he asked. She blinked her big blue eyes and nodded. Evan sighed. Many travelers passed through Haven 1-2's orbit. Some ships were old or damaged. Crashes were rare but not impossible. Maybe her family had been on the ship. Maybe she was the only survivor. "Are you alone?" he asked softly. The child looked down. She pulled her knees close to her chest. Her small shoulders shook a little. Evan did not ask again. He knew the answer. He quietly warmed a blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders. The child looked up at him with surprise, then gave a small, shy smile. It was the first time she had smiled since arriving. "It's okay," Evan whispered. "You're safe now." For a while, the outpost stayed silent except for the soft humming of machines and the quiet eating sounds of the little alien. Evan sat across from her, trying to give her comfort without making her feel watched. After finishing her food, she drank water from a small cup, then touched her hand to her chest and bowed her head slightly. Evan guessed it was her way of saying, "Thank you. You're welcome," he replied with a warm smile. But then something strange happened. The child suddenly stood up and walked toward the door. Evan followed her, but didn't stop her. She stepped outside into the cool evening air. The two suns had dropped behind the hills, leaving the sky deep purple with bright stars. The little alien looked up at the sky for a long moment. Then she turned to Evan and pointed upward again, this time with urgency. Her eyes were worried. She shook her head quickly and tapped the ground twice. Evan frowned. "Are you warning me?" She repeated the gesture, pointing to the sky, shaking her head, tapping the ground. It was like she was trying to say, "Something is coming, something big." "Is someone looking for you?" Evan asked quietly. The child's breath quickened. She pressed her hands together tightly. Her glowing lines flickered brighter. She stepped closer to Evan and tugged on his sleeve, pulling him inside the building. She pointed to the main console. Evan walked to it and activated the long-range scanner. The screen flickered. Then a large red mark appeared above the orbit of the planet. A ship. A very big one. And it was descending. Evan felt a cold wave run down his spine. "Is that your family?" he asked. The child did not answer with words. Instead, she pressed her forehead against his arm, trembling like she was scared of whatever was coming. Evan put a hand gently on her shoulder. "It's okay. I'm right here." But the scanner beeped again. Louder this time. The ship was entering the planet's atmosphere. It was massive, far larger than any civilian vessel. Its signature was strong, powerful, and old. A warship, maybe. Or a royal ship. Whatever it was coming straight toward Evan's outpost. The child looked up at him with wide, shining eyes. She whispered something in her own language, a soft sound full of fear. Evan didn't know her words, but he understood her meaning. Someone very powerful was coming. Someone she feared. The ground trembled lightly as the huge ship passed through the clouds. Evan took a deep breath. The hungry alien child had come to him alone. But she wasn't alone anymore. Her mother was here, and she was coming right for him. The ground shook again as the giant ship descended, its shadow spreading across the plains like a dark blanket. Evan stepped outside the outpost, the little alien child holding tightly onto his sleeve. The wind pushed against them as the ship roared through the clouds, glowing blue flames rolling from its engines. Evan had seen many ships during his life on Haven 1-2, but he had never seen something this massive. Its surface was silver-black metal, with soft glowing lines, the same color as the child's skin. It looked ancient but powerful, like a vessel built by a civilization far older than humans. The ship slowed, hovering silently above the dusty ground. Evan felt his heart beating fast. The child hid behind his leg, her small body trembling. "It's okay," Evan said softly, even though he himself wasn't sure. A bright circular door opened at the bottom of the ship. A platform lowered slowly. A tall figure appeared, very tall. She stepped onto the platform with controlled grace. Her armor shone like polished iron, covered in carved symbols. Her eyes glowed bright blue, sharper and more intense than her child's. She carried no visible weapon, yet she looked more dangerous than any weapon Evan had ever seen. This was clearly the child's mother, and she was looking straight at him. The platform touched the ground, sending a faint vibration through the air. The alien mother took one step forward. Her expression, hard and full of tension. The glowing lines on her arms brightened as she approached. The child whispered something in her own language, her voice shaking. The mother stopped suddenly when she heard it. Her eyes darted to her daughter, and a flash of relief crossed her face. But then her gaze returned to Evan, and her expression changed again, this time full of suspicion. Evan raised his hands slowly. "I'm not a threat. I helped her." The mother didn't understand his words, but she understood his gesture. She stepped closer anyway, her tall figure towering over him. She looked down at Evan with sharp, searching eyes, as if she was trying to see if he had caused harm. The child let go of Evan's sleeve and stood between them. She looked up at her mother and placed both hands on her own chest, then pointed to Evan. It was a simple gesture, one that said he had protected her. The mother watched her daughter for a long moment. The bright glow in her eyes softened slightly. She took a deep breath, then looked at Evan again. She spoke in her own language, her voice deep and echoing with power. Evan could not understand a single word, but the meaning was clear. She was asking what had happened. Evan knelt to show respect and pointed toward the sky, then motioned a falling movement, then toward the child. She found me. She was hungry. The mother watched his slow gestures. Her expression shifted. She now understood enough to know he had saved her child's life. But still, she was not fully calm. She looked around the outpost, scanning for danger. Her glowing lines dimmed and brightened as she focused. Evan got the sense she was searching for something, perhaps making sure no one else had been near her daughter. After another few moments, the mother lowered herself into a crouch, bringing her face to the child's level. She touched her forehead gently to her daughter's, a gesture of deep affection in their species. The child relaxed instantly, hugging her mother's arm. But the peace did not last. Suddenly, the mother stiffened, her eyes narrowed. She stood quickly and looked toward the horizon. She pressed her hand to the side of her armor, activating a glowing symbol. A faint hum filled the air. Evan felt uneasy. "What is it now?" he whispered. A warning tone came from the mother's armor, sharp, urgent. She spoke again, this time with tension in her voice, pointing at the distant sky. Evan looked where she pointed. At first, he saw nothing. Then, his scanner beeped from inside the outpost. Evan rushed to the console and checked the display. 3 fast-moving objects were approaching Haven 1-2. Their energy signatures were unfamiliar, but dangerous. The mother stepped inside the outpost without permission, her eyes locked on the screen. She pointed at the incoming signals, and then looked at Evan with concern. "You're being chased," Evan said quietly. "Someone followed your ship." "That." The mother understood the emotion in his voice, if not the words. She gave a firm nod. The child clung to her mother's leg, frightened. Evan swallowed hard. He needed to do something. He stepped to the side and pointed at the mother's ship, then made a shaking gesture with his hands, as if showing damage or danger. Then he pointed to himself and tapped the tools on his belt. He was offering to help repair or reinforce her ship. The mother stared at him, confused for a moment. Then her eyes widened slightly as she understood. Humans had simple gestures, but their meaning was clear. He wanted to help her. She stepped back and looked at her daughter, who nodded eagerly and pointed to Evan with trust in her eyes. The mother took a slow breath, then turned to Evan and placed her hand gently on her chest. It was her way of saying, "Thank you," or acceptance. Evan nodded and grabbed his repair tools. Together, they ran toward the alien ship. Up close, the vessel was even more impressive. Its metal surface shifted like living material, responding to the mother's touch. She opened a panel and revealed a damaged energy core. It pulsed weakly. Evan understood the basic structure. The design was alien, but energy systems were energy systems. He could help stabilize it. He pointed to the core, then to himself, then to the repair device on his belt. The mother stepped aside and allowed him room. She watched carefully as he worked. Slowly, the core's light grew stronger. The mother's eyes widened again. She hadn't expected a human from a small frontier outpost to repair something her own engineers struggled with. The child watched too, her expression full of hope. Finally, the core stabilized. The ship hummed with renewed power. Evan stepped back and wiped his forehead. "That should help," he said. Even though they couldn't understand his words, the mother placed a hand gently on his shoulder, a rare sign of trust. But the moment was cut short. The scanners blared loudly. The 3 incoming ships had entered the atmosphere. The mother grabbed her daughter and looked at Evan with urgency. She pointed to the sky, then to her ship, then to him, asking him if he would stand with them. Evan took a deep breath. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. But he couldn't let a child he protected face danger alone. He nodded firmly. The mother's eyes softened for the first time. She understood his courage, and together, they prepared for what was coming. The 3 ships in the distance moved closer, their engines burning bright against the darkening sky. They were faster and larger than any craft Evan had ever seen. Their shapes were jagged and aggressive, clearly built for attack. Evan's heart beat faster. The little alien child clung to her mother's leg, her glowing eyes wide with fear. The mother turned to Evan and nodded once. That was all the gesture needed. She was asking him to fight alongside them. Evan took a deep breath. "All right," he whispered to himself. "Let's do this." He ran toward the mother's ship, grabbing the tools and devices he had brought. The alien mother activated a shield around the ship. It glowed blue, covering the hull in a protective dome. Evan quickly connected a few cables to the shield generator and tweaked the settings, his human ingenuity making small but important improvements. "You're clever," the mother said in her broken English, her voice calm but serious. Evan gave a small shrug. "I just fix things. Big or small, that's all I know." The child looked up at him and smiled. Her small hands waved at him. Evan felt a warmth in his chest. This little one, who had come alone and scared, had brought him into a world far bigger than his quiet outpost. The first of the 3 hostile ships reached the planet's atmosphere. Its weapons glowed red. It fired a pulse toward the mother's ship. The shield flared bright but held. Sparks flew across the surface of the hull, and the vibration of the blast made Evan stumble. "Keep steady," the mother said. Her hands moved across her control panel with skill and speed. The ship responded to her movements like a living creature. Evan ran along the deck, monitoring the shield and adjusting energy flows. He had no weapons, only tools, but he was keeping the shield strong and stable. The mother glanced at him and nodded. Her respect for humans was growing with every second. The second hostile ship fired a volley. This time, Evan noticed a weakness in its energy pulses. Quickly, he adjusted the shield frequency to create a feedback wave. The attacking beam bounced off and exploded a short distance from them. The mother's eyes widened. She had not expected a human mind to understand alien energy systems so quickly. "You see? We can fight together," Evan said. Though the words felt small compared to the chaos around them, the child cheered quietly. She jumped up and down, her tiny hands glowing faintly. She had an unusual ability. Her species could manipulate minor energy fields. She pointed at the attacking ships, and small sparks of energy shot toward them, slowing one of the enemy vessels. Evan noticed and adjusted the ship's shield to work with her energy. The mother's face showed pride. This human was different. He was not just brave. He was quick, inventive, and loyal. Traits that mattered far more than strength alone. The third hostile ship was larger and closer now. Its weapons fired in rapid succession. The mother maneuvered her ship with astonishing speed, but the enemy was relentless. Evan's hands moved across his tools, rerouting power, reinforcing shields, and opening small countermeasures. Every adjustment gave them a small advantage. Then, Evan noticed a chance. The largest ship had a weak point near its engine cluster, a section unprotected by its shields. He pointed it out to the mother using gestures. She studied the ships carefully, then nodded. "Together," she said, pointing at him and then at the weapons. Evan ran to the weapon control panel. He had never used alien weapons before, but with her guidance, he quickly understood. The child also focused, adding her energy to the targeting systems. The mother gave a final command. The ship's cannons fired simultaneously with Evan's adjustments and the child's energy pulse. The largest hostile ship shuddered as a beam struck its engine cluster. Sparks flew, and the ship veered uncontrollably before crashing into a nearby canyon. The remaining 2 enemy ships paused, assessing the sudden loss of their leader. Evan saw an opportunity. With a combination of clever shielding, precise movements, and small energy pulses from the child, they forced the second ship to retreat. The third ship followed, disappearing into the night sky. For the first time, the plains around Haven 1-2 were silent again. The mother's ship glowed softly as her shields powered down. She turned to Evan and the child. Her glowing eyes held something rare: admiration and respect. "You, human," she said slowly. "Brave, clever, protector." Evan smiled, exhausted but proud. "I just did what anyone would do." The mother shook her head slightly. No, Not anyone. You. Different. Strong. In heart. The child ran to Evan and hugged him tightly. Her small arms were surprisingly strong. Evan laughed quietly. I guess I'm a hero now, he said, though the words felt light compared to everything that had happened. The mother stepped closer. She knelt slightly to match Evan's height. You saved her, she said. You saved us. Her voice was deep and full of emotion. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of trust that her species rarely offered to outsiders. Evan felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had not expected to meet aliens, much less help protect one of their kind from danger. But he also realized something important. Kindness and courage can create allies across worlds. The mother straightened and looked at the horizon. We leave now, she said. She looked at Evan one last time. But we will return. You helped one child. Now, your name. Known. The child hugged Evan again, glowing faintly with joy. Evan ruffled her hair gently. I'll be here. Waiting, he said softly. The mother activated her ship. Engines glowed brighter, lifting the massive vessel into the sky. Evan watched as the ship climbed higher and higher, the two suns now fully set, and the stars beginning to shine. As the ship disappeared into the night, Evan stood alone in the quiet plains. His heart still raced from the battle, and his hands were smudged with energy residue and dirt. But he felt proud. He had faced the unknown, helped the helpless, and stood beside a species far stronger than humans in raw power, but not in heart. For the first time in his life, Evan realized that humanity's true strength was more than machines, tools, or weapons. It was courage, kindness, and loyalty, the ability to protect those who could not protect themselves. The child's glowing light lingered in his mind, and the mother's respect echoed in his heart. Haven 1 too had been quiet before, but now it would never feel the same. Evan knew that humans and aliens could become allies, even friends, when bravery and compassion guided the way. He looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the mother and child were safe. And somewhere out there, humans were proving their place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Evan smiled, feeling the warmth of that thought. The universe was vast, strange, and sometimes dangerous, but it had room for hearts like his. And one day, he knew, the aliens would return not as threats, but as friends. The frontier outpost was quiet again. But Evan Carter was no longer just a mechanic. He was a witness to the courage of the heart. A small hero who had faced the unknown and survived, and that was enough. The stars were bright above Haven 1-2 as Evan cleaned his tools and repaired the small damages to his outpost. The battle with the pirates, or whatever those ships had been, was over, but his mind was still racing. He could not stop thinking about the child and her mother. Strange feelings of pride and awe swirled inside him. Somehow, humans had earned respect from beings far stronger than themselves. Suddenly, a soft hum filled the sky. Evan looked up. A small, glowing ship hovered above the outpost. It was much smaller than the mother's massive vessel, but its shape and the gentle light made it unmistakable. The hatch opened. The child stepped out first, her glowing eyes bright with excitement. Evan felt his chest tighten. She ran toward him, and before he could react, she hugged his leg tightly. Her joy was contagious. Evan laughed quietly and bent down to ruffle her hair. She wanted to see you again, Evan said softly. He looked at the sky, hoping the mother's ship would appear. 2 moments later, a shadow passed across the outpost. The mother's massive ship descended slowly, landing with calm precision. Its engines hummed softly, almost like a heartbeat. Evan stepped outside. The mother's glowing blue eyes scanned him. She did not speak immediately. She did not need words. Her posture alone showed that she had returned not as a threat, but as an ally. The child ran to her mother, then back to Evan, showing him the way to the ship. Evan hesitated. He had never left his planet before. Leaving with aliens, no matter how friendly, was risky, but the child's trust and the mother's silent invitation felt impossible to refuse. "I guess I'm coming with you," Evan said softly. The mother's glowing eyes widened slightly, as if she approved. She extended a hand, a rare gesture of invitation. Evan took it, and together they walked toward the ship. The child held both of their hands, guiding them along the ramp. Inside, the ship was vast, its interior smooth and glowing with soft light. Panels and devices lined the walls. Evan's eyes widened at the complexity. Every surface seemed alive, responding to movement and thought. The mother gestured to a console, and Evan quickly realized she wanted him to see something. The screen lit up, showing a star map. Several red markers moved across it. Ships, planets, and strange signals. "These are other threats?" Evan asked. The mother nodded. She tapped on one of the markers, and a small display appeared. Evan could understand the basic idea. There were multiple hostile forces tracking her species. She had fought only a few before, but many more existed. Evan swallowed. "So, you need help?" The mother's glowing eyes softened. She did not answer with words. Instead, she extended her hand toward him and the tools he had carried. She needed him to assist, to teach, to prepare. Evan realized what that meant. Humans had always relied on ingenuity and teamwork to survive. And now, these aliens stronger and faster were seeking the very things humans had: clever thinking, resourcefulness, and courage. I can help," Evan said. His voice was steady, though excitement and fear mixed in. The child clapped her small hands, her glow brightening in joy. Evan felt warmth in his chest. Somehow, a human from a quiet outpost had become part of something much larger than himself. For the next several hours, Evan worked alongside the mother and child. He repaired minor damages, strengthened shields, and adjusted energy flows to maximize the ship's efficiency. The mother observed him closely, occasionally nodding or gesturing. She even allowed him to test a few systems, small but important actions that made the ship more agile and prepared. The child helped in her own way, sending small pulses of energy through the systems, creating a feedback that enhanced their shields. Evan watched in amazement. The two aliens, mother and daughter, worked as a team, and he fit in, proving that humans could be valuable even in a world of advanced technology and raw power. Hours passed, and the small crew finally paused. The mother stepped close to Evan and placed a hand gently on his shoulder. It was the ultimate recognition in her species, a sign of respect and trust. "You, human," she said in her broken English. "Strong, brave." Evan smiled, feeling honored. "I just did what anyone would do," he said quietly. The mother's eyes glowed brighter. "No, not anyone. You understand heart. You understand life." The child, sensing the bond, leaned against Evan. "You are family," she said softly in her own language. Evan could not understand all the words, but the feeling was clear. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. Evan jumped to a console. The sensors indicated new hostile ships approaching, larger, faster, and more dangerous than before. The mother's glow brightened, her focus sharp. She gestured to Evan. He understood immediately. He would be part of this battle, just as before. Evan nodded. "Let's do it," he said. His hands moved quickly, rerouting power, adjusting shields, and preparing the ship's defensive systems. The child glowed brightly, sending pulses of energy through the control panels. The mother guided them both with precision, her ship moving gracefully despite the approaching enemies. The hostile ships fired first. The shields held, thanks to Evan's adjustments and the child's energy support. Evan noticed patterns in the attacks and quickly relayed signals to the mother through gestures. She understood and adjusted the ship's maneuvers to counter. Minutes passed, each one filled with tension and action. Together, The human and aliens worked as a team. Every threat they faced, every enemy move, was met with clever strategy and courage. Finally, the last hostile ship fled, retreating into the darkness. The ship's interior glowed softly again. Silence returned. The mother stepped close to Evan, placing her hand on his shoulder once more. Her glow dimmed in a calm, approving rhythm. She had recognized him not just as a helper, but as an ally, as a friend, as a protector. The child ran to Evan and hugged him tightly. "You. Brave," she said softly. Evan laughed quietly. "We all were brave," he said. "All of us." The mother's eyes glowed gently as she looked at the star map again. Evan realized their journey was far from over. Many threats remained. But now he understood something important. Humans had a place in the galaxy, not because of strength alone, but because of courage, creativity, and the heart to protect others. And with that knowledge, Evan felt ready for whatever lay ahead. Together, they would face the unknown. Together, they would show the universe the power of trust, courage, and the human spirit. The stars of Haven 1-2 shone brightly above, as if signaling a new beginning. Evan smiled. Somehow, he knew this was only the start of a larger adventure.